Hello, lighting people. Lightfair is 9 months away, but many optimistic business people are already planning for an in-person show, which will start on May 16th, 2021 at the Javits Center in New York City. This year's show, scheduled for May 2020 in Las Vegas, was converted to a virtual show, which took place over 3 days in July. We thought that this would be a good time to have on the show director, Dan Darby from Lightfair, to ask him how the recent show went amidst all the changes and what planning is like for the future show 9 short months away. So please welcome Dan Darby for 5 big questions.
Hey, good morning, Al. Thanks so much for having me on. Happy to talk with you.
Glad you're here, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
So Dan, all industries have been affected by the pandemic, but industries like travel and retail and your industry, the meetings industry, have really been taking severe blows. How are you folks managing?
It's been challenging for sure, I'll tell you. My entire career, Al, has been in trade shows, 33 years. And, people ask me, how did you handle something like this last time? And I keep saying, there's never been anything like this before, ever. I would say even with SARS and H1N1 in the early 2000s, they didn't affect the U.S. trade show industry at all. Unfortunately, I'd say estimate about 60% of the trade show professionals I know have been laid off. But if you'll forgive the pun, the show must go on. We are concluding our 2021 space selection this week. It was done entirely online for the first time. Our conference advisory committee has already met to start planning out the curriculum. Our marketing team is already putting together the 2021 marketing plan. So we are rolling with plans for the show. And fortunately for us, fortunately for everyone, we have the technology to do this. I mean, just imagine 5-10 years ago trying to conduct business, even like this, without Zoom, without, ubiquitous mobile phones, without easy access to company networks. We're in a place where we can do this and get the job done. And based on everything I'm reading, everyone is eager to get back to business and get back to face-to-face meetings. So we're looking forward to it.
Great, we are too, Dan. And just taking a look back for a moment, when the 2020 show was postponed and converted to a virtual conference, stakeholders are affected financially. There's deposits, there's exhibitors and hotels and everything else. Which stakeholders in that scenario suffered the largest financial hit when a big trade show and conference like that is canceled?
Well, good question. So certainly our exhibitors took, the biggest financial hit because they didn't have Lightfair as their sales and marketing platform for the year, for them to make their sales goals. But fortunately, we were able to give our exhibitors 100% of their exhibit fees back as a refund. So that was good. Our partners, there are 3 partner organizations that own Lightfair. Obviously, the 3 partners took a financial hit because we do incur pre-show expenses. So whether or not we have the show, we have hard, fast bills that had to be paid. But in general, beyond them, trade shows are far beyond just the convention centers and the hotels that are near them. You've got the airlines that are affected by it. You've got cab drivers and Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, the restaurants, you've got entertainers, you've got the attractions. I remember a study was done, I want to say last April. So it was early in the pandemic, and it was done by the Center for Industry Research, which is a part of the Trade Show Association. And they were estimating at the time that the U.S. economy was going to take about a $20 billion hit from the spring shows being canceled, spring and early summer. Well, now, we're looking at shows into the middle and late fall being canceled. I don't have that current stat, but, it's easily double. So upwards of $40 billion has been taken from the U.S. economy.
For sure. So these shows are converted oftentimes to virtual shows, which is a smaller scale with lower overhead. You folks did that for converting your May Lightfair to a July 3-day conference, which was held virtually and still available online, if we may add that.
Right.
What were your expectations heading into that, and how would you compare the results to your expectations?
Well, so normally we would have had about 85 sessions. We went online with Connect with 50 sessions, and we had close to 700 participants, which, based on the feedback we had gotten from other show producers before us, that was in line with our expectations. So we were pleased with that. We were really fortunate in that the platform that we already used for our conference had a virtual conference platform. So it was very easy for us to pivot to that platform. And I don't know if you were able to participate, but we offered pre-recorded sessions, but then our presenters were available live for Q&A with the participants during the course. And, you know, as you've mentioned, we've already put all of the sessions online for on demand. The only difference is obviously the presenters are not available for the live Q&A. You know, again, we were really fortunate in that we had the platform already set up. Other show producers have been able to do it quickly. My recommendation, you know, any show producer will tell you, just make plans now potentially for that so you're ready.
Right. Yeah. Going forward with a plan A and a plan B is adding a lot more work to the plate for preparation, but it's certainly necessary. And speaking of that, you folks have already announced some of the measures you're taking or planning to take for Lightfair 2021 in New York City. The Safer Floor, Safer Show initiative has some precautions and safety measures put in place. Tell us some of the main points of that.
Well, yeah, Safer Floor, Safer Show is, you know, driven by our goal, obviously, which is to make our attendees and our exhibitors feel comfortable on the show floor to conduct business. So I'd say of the most important measure in that whole plan is for us to stay current on all the recommendations from the CDC, monitor results from other shows that will be before us, and we do have to comply with New York guidelines. I think you just mentioned, you know, we've got about 9 months. You said short months. I'm hoping they're long months. But, you know, we've only really been dealing with COVID-19 for about 7 months. So we have more time in front of us than we've been dealing with this. So I hope with that amount of time, you know, we will see some significant recovery. We will see some containment of the virus and, you know, possibly a vaccine. And we'll continue to modify and refine the Safer Floor, Safer Show throughout these next 9 months. So back to the plan. It's available on our homepage at lightfair.com. It was developed with the Trade Show Association that I mentioned just a minute ago, along with the Javits Center, along with Freeman Decorating, along with looking at what other show producers have done. And you know, a lot of the things are obvious, you know, masks being required. You know, we will have some sort of health screen built into our mobile app that each exhibitor and attendee will look at each morning. Touchless registration process with QR scanning. You know, there's the potential for one-way aisles, but I don't know if your grocery store has them. Mine does. It doesn't really seem to be that effective. Hand sanitizers everywhere. In the conference sessions, seating would be spaced out appropriately for social distancing. And I think too, this is an area where we have an advantage that we're in a convention center where we have ample space, we have high ceilings, where maybe you might not have that advantage, you know, were we to be in a hotel.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of detail and a lot of smart measures to be taken, and it's good that you do have at this point time on your side. But given the fact that a week or a month in this pandemic could cause things to change rapidly, either positively or negatively under these conditions, there's so many stakeholders with the public health and the financial factors and other things relating to exhibitor sentiment and attendee sentiment and registrations, et cetera. So when you get closer to the show, there's going to have to be some sort of, at least I imagine, there will be some point of no return on the calendar where it's like, okay, it's going to be a live show with the precautions you mentioned and maybe others, or we're going to make the decision to convert it. Tell us, what will that decision process be like with the different toll gates you have in the coming months as we get closer and closer to the show to make those important decisions that affect so many different stakeholders?
Yeah, a lot of stakeholders. So we'll have a process similar to what we did for 2020, where we predetermine some scenarios and we go ahead and determine what our responses will be. So if any of those scenarios take place, we can respond immediately and efficiently. You know, just like if you had a show in New York in January, you know, you'd have a blizzard contingency plan. If you had a show in Orlando in September, you'd have a hurricane contingency plan. So, you know, right now you'll have contingency plans like the governor of your state prohibits meetings more than 50 people, something like that. So we will have a plan in place. You know, as far as the timing goes, we would, again, look at what we did this past year. You know, obviously we know when our show dates are. We know what milestones our exhibitors will have. One of the things we were very deliberate about this year was making the call to cancel the show before exhibitors started shipping their booths to their freight to the warehouse, because that can cost exhibitors, you know, upwards of tens of thousands of dollars. So, you know, we were doing our due diligence to make sure we could mitigate as much as possible those expenses for our exhibitors. And, you know, of course, we won't be the first show in 2021. You know, we are not until the middle of May. So we have the advantage of seeing what other shows are doing. We'll be able to take advantage of their precautions, what's working well for them, and we'll see which shows, you know, have been successful in staging.
Well, Dan, as a lighting enthusiast and a longtime Lightfair attendee, 2020 just wasn't the same without going to North America's largest lighting trade show. So it sounds like you folks are doing everything possible to forge ahead, make smart plans and prudent plans with multiple options given the way that this thing could go. And we applaud your efforts, and we hope to see you in the aisles of the Javits Center in mid-May 2021. Thank you for joining us today, Dan, for 5 big questions.
Good to see you. I look forward to seeing you in New York.